The Amish have a great brand. IKEA has a great brand. You know what you're getting from either. You know, and the Amish versions of marketing services, those companies maybe don't have to worry about ChatGPT, right? I mean, or do they? The Amish certainly aren't worried about it.
I can't see them using it much.
I heard myself say that, then I looked at
Oh my God. I'm sorry.
Like, wait.
You have to. No, Andy, I'm serious. You
like
have
this
to do a
moment of
post.
silence.
Your next post has to be the Amish and ChatGPT, the future.
Furniture and
it's
AI
coming.
furniture tips from the Amish GPT.
And here's where the show went off the rails.
Amish.ai is an
point.
available domain. Nobody's registered that.
Didn't take long. On today's show, we have the Godfather himself, Joe Pulizzi. If you've been living under a rock and you don't know who Joe is, let me dive into his bio. Joe Pulizzi is an entrepreneur, speaker, and author and podcaster. He is the founder or co-founder of multiple startups, including the Content Marketing Institute, the Tilt, and CEX, Creator Economy Expo. And he also co-founded the Orange Effect Foundation. Joe is the winner of the 2014 John Caldwell Lifetime Achievement Award from the Content Council. Joe's third book, Epic Content Marketing, was named one of the 5 must-read business books of the year by Fortune magazine. His newest book, Killing Marketing, was published in September of 2017. His fourth book, Content Inc., has been a top direct marketing bestseller since September of 2015. Joe has also co-authored 2 other books, Get Content, Get Customers, and Managing Content Marketing. Joe has also spoken at more than 400 locations in 16 countries, advancing the practice of content marketing. He's delivered keynote speeches for events and organizations, including South by Southwest, NAM, Fortune Magazine's Leadership Summit, Nestle, General Motors, Oracle, DuPont, SAP, HP, and Dell. Internet, please welcome Joe Pulizzi.
Joe Pulizzi, welcome to the show.
Andy, it's a pleasure to be here, Chris. It's wonderful. This is amazing to be in front of you two gentlemen. Thank you for this opportunity.
Oh, we've been looking forward to this for a long time. What's going on?
Oh man, what's not going on? So I recently ran my first marathon. One of the greatest experiences of my life, of course.
Bravo.
Getting married, having my kids, running a marathon.
Wow.
It's up there. It's top 5. I got to tell you.
Good for you. That's amazing.
And I had to make sure that I remembered coming across the finish line that I looked down and watched my foot cross the line so I could say, okay, the culmination of all the work happened. Boom. Mm-hmm. So that was pretty powerful. I'll remember that always. And then we had Creator Economy Expo, our big event, and just to get to see all these people looking for what I think is the best business model on the planet of a content entrepreneur. And as you know, mm-hmm. you built your own, and mm-hmm. And it's just exciting to see all the opportunities that are out there right now for entrepreneurs looking at this content first business model. So I'm very optimistic about the future, and so that's what I'm living and breathing right now.
Give us some highlights. Where's it all going? You've done an amazing job of predicting the future at this point in your career, so I'm excited. Anything on the creator economy, please.
We'll talk a little bit about it in my segment as we go, but I think that because of what happened during the end times of COVID and the recessionary period, we're seeing a lot more people not look at that business model as risky as it used to be. I remember when I was in corporate world, this is back in 2007, everyone was saying, "Oh, Joe, this is a big risk. You're leaving a 6-figure job, an executive position to build an audience. You're not even launching a product. Like what's going on there?" And now we're into 2023, and it seems more like a no-brainer. It seems like even my kids who are both in college right now, they look at that as something that they need to consider, not just going into the workforce and being a lawyer or a doctor. And all those jobs are wonderful. There's many needed professions out there. Everyone has their own calling and path. But the fact that you only need a smartphone, realistically, to build an entire multi-million-dollar business around you in 3 to 5 years. And I think what we've learned the most is 18 months seems to be the magic number. It really takes an 18-month runway to get you to a point where you're driving enough revenue over expenses, that you can almost support yourself and a family. And so that's why I tell anybody looking to get into it, no matter what age, because at Creator Economy Expo, as you know, we had people ranging from 18 years to 70 there. Mm-hmm. You have to make sure your first and foremost goal is rein in expenses, get down to a point where you don't have a lot of overhead, so that you can set yourself up for 18 to 24 to 30 months. I mean, when I launched Content Marketing Institute back in 2007, it really took almost 3 years to get it to a point where my wife and I looked at each other and said, oh my God, maybe it's not ramen noodles and bologna tonight. Like, maybe we can actually make this thing run. And that's what I think a lot of people get into, and they expect 3, 6, 9 months, this influencer celebrity status, they're making a lot of money. That is not happening. That's the less than 1% of 1% that's going to get there. Even Mr. Beast launched in 2011, and in 2015 had a handful of subscribers. 2016 had only 30,000 subscribers. 2017 everything took off. That's 6 years. So if we put that into then it's great. Then it's wonderful. Many assets, many options. So I like that. I think people are starting to realize that. And I'm sort of out shouting from the rooftops saying, please be patient. That is the number one attribute for success as a content creator.
Wow. Yeah, I've always sort of been impressed with what you've been building, and then just hearing your stories and just knowing that you got bologna too. When we started, it was just ramen. It was like bologna was for.
So we were living in the lap of luxury because we had a choice between either one. I'll tell you what. Thank God I liked ramen, because
I know.
Well, you got those package deals, right? So.
Yeah. I was telling you the last time I was on the show that our business doubled our profits every year for the first 3 years, because we had no profit.
It's great, but it's really good to make those top, most profitable local lists. I mean, I remember, I think it was back in 09 or 10, there was a Cleveland Weatherhead, most profitable, fastest growing. And we grew by 600% because we made a couple $100 for each year. So, you lean into that stuff. It's okay. Right. Nobody knows. It's all good, whatever it takes.
Well, let's dive in. I think we're going to be a little bit time constrained. So we have a new format for the show. What we're trying to do is break it into 3 parts, where everyone that comes, Andy and myself, are kind of regular hosts, but we bring in a guest host, and we all take one topic for roughly 10 minutes. You get to present it, we get to chime in, and then you get to close. So Andy, I think you're up.
Sounds good. Yeah, let's share some thoughts thinking out loud. I'm a content marketer, and Chris, you and I believe in a similar kind of content strategy, which is where you underpin everything. Joe, you taught us this, with original research. Try to publish a new statistic, do something that's truly newsworthy, make something that's literally original, making yourself the primary source. It's been part of my content strategy, works very, very well for us, but it has to be topical. So what's happening in the world? AI, ChatGPT, Midjourney, etc. Changing how we all do business, but do consumers care? That we do this? Or do they want us to do this? Does trust among consumers go up or down when they find out their service providers actually using AI to do their job? Interesting, right? Unknowable, need a survey. I threw this question out to some friends at a bar on a Friday. Saturday, I had the questions written up. Sunday, pitched it to my friends at Question Pro. Tuesday, had the data. 1,000 respondents, general population, which is perfect because I want to know what consumers think. Do you want your service providers, doctors, lawyers, attorneys, financial planners, some of those categories you just mentioned, Joe, to use AI? The reason I ask, and the reason I'm wondering, is because at what point should we add AI to our marketing messages, knowing that it's going to land, it's going to be seen as a positive, knowing that, as social norms change, things that seemed sometimes repulsive initially, AI feels that way to some, end up feeling like a requirement later on. It reminds me of a famous Andrew Carnegie quote, "The goal of capitalism is to turn luxuries into necessities." When does this become a social norm? And when should we add this to our marketing? The answer, according to the survey, it varies by category. Marketing services people seem more comfortable right now than other categories to use AI. But the bottom line in the single sentence takeaway for the whole project basically was that consumers are open to and interested in and accepting of their service providers using AI. Hypothesis: it's time, or will be time very soon, for us to not just add this to our processes and our day-to-day work, but to add this to our marketing messages, because it's going to increase trust. Thoughts?
You first, Joe.
You want me to go first?
Yeah.
First of all, kudos to you for putting out the question. As you know, we in the content and marketing field have been obsessed with the whole idea of AI. I believe that long term, people want what's easiest for them. If AI is going to help them get there, then that's wonderful. I think right now we're talking about it, and since we're talking about it and talking about integration, we're not even close to where we need to be from an experiential standpoint, and what makes sense. I've been trying to go out and tell people that want to really, really super integrate it. And I'm saying it's a tool. It's just like right now. This is just right now. We're not at matrix stage yet, but right now it's just like moving from a typewriter to a word processor. That's a big move. There's a lot, so that's a great tool change that helped a lot of storytellers, a lot of content creators, a lot of marketers do some things differently. So if Midjourney, if DALL-E 2, if ChatGPT help you get there and help your messaging and help you be more efficient and help you be more profitable as a business, great. Now you're talking about the other side from a consumer standpoint. If that helps all those things from a messaging standpoint and helps you create better relationships in some way, because maybe you can focus on other things, by maybe focus on LinkedIn from more of a relationship standpoint, or focus on doing an event where you didn't have time to do that before and actually get to talk to human beings, then that's seems to be what AI was meant for. I don't know if that's necessarily answering the question, but I long term, I think there's going to be a battle between, was this AI influenced content? Was this AI influenced messaging or not? I think we're going to have a lot of those conversations, but all it comes down to is it easier for the customer? I had a conversation with Robert Rose on this old marketing podcast yesterday about this exact thing. And I said, okay, you're getting into an Uber. One is completely automated. The other one has a human being driving. Well, do you care? He's like, whatever's easier, right? Yeah. Whatever's easier from just that one little situation. And I think that probably makes sense for most consumers. If it gets in the way of what you're trying to accomplish goals, then you're going to look for whatever doesn't get in the way. That's what I don't know, Chris, if you have a take on top of that one.
I do. I have too much to say, unfortunately. I think it's going to come down to how ubiquitous they make AI. And once Microsoft 365 with Copilot and once Workplace 14 comes out, and the average people are seeing how quick AI is connecting Excel to Word to PowerPoint, it looked like a YouTube video. And then once it's in their hands and they realize that their Teams meeting now has AI and everything is connected and they literally are playing with it, that's when I think that the light goes on, not to just the marketers, not to whatever it is, it goes on to everybody.
So it becomes a social norm. You're a brand, you're considering a content marketing agency. You go to one website and the header, the homepage H1 says AI-powered content creation and promotion services.
Yep.
The other says we do everything lovingly by hand. Which of those do you trust more? Are you skeptical of one? Does one trigger kind of price concerns?
It's not that exactly. I don't think it's that simple. I think that by hand, right? But if it's done at a fraction of the cost and twice the speed, there's going to be those factors in there.
But the good news is, Andy and Chris, I think you can go either way on it. I think that if you say this is my differentiation area and I'm going to lean into that tilt, then that's what you do from a homemade standpoint. And there's going to be, I mean, look at Etsy, right? Etsy has just boomed. It's been incredibly successful because you have a group of people on there doing handmade things different than you can get in Walmart or Target. Yeah. So there's an opportunity there, and there's an opportunity at the other end as well. I think the issue is if you're sort of wishy-washy in the middle, where you're not differentiated at all, and you're just like, we're all the things. And if you're all the things in anything, you're not going to be successful.
Well, Joe and I were from Pennsylvania, so we have the Amish that are literally right between where I live and where you live. I'm from Philly. Went to.
I don't
Penn
know.
State,
I'm in
right?
Cleveland, but I spent time at State
You were
College.
at Penn State, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we have.
I know
this,
what you're
like,
talking about.
It was made by the Amish, and
Yep.
this chair had no screws in it. It just all fit together, and the chair was $192, and IKEA can have it something similar with screws here for $48 tomorrow. It's going to be a very weird world.
Those are
you
both
know?
good value props.
Yep.
The Amish have a
Yeah.
great brand. IKEA has a great brand. You know what you're getting from either. And the Amish versions of marketing services, those companies maybe don't have to worry about ChatGPT, right? I mean, or do they? The Amish certainly aren't worried about it.
I can't
also-
see them using it much.
I heard myself say that, then I looked at
Oh
your
my
faces,
God.
and
I'm
I was
sorry.
like, wait.
You have to. No, Andy, I'm serious.
was
You
like
have
this
to do a
moment of
post.
silence.
Your next post has to be the Amish and ChatGPT, the future.
Furniture and furniture,
it's
AI
coming.
furniture tips from the Amish, GPT.
And here's where the show went off the rails.
Amish.ai
right at this
is an
point.
available domain. Nobody's registered that.
Didn't take long.
Okay, who's up next? Thank you for the input.
I think that Joe is up.
Is this
next.
me? Okay.
Yep.
All right. So here's my take, and Andy knows about this because I presented at your wonderful conference and sort of talked about this issue. But I want to set the stage. I'm dating myself. I'm going back to the early 2000s. So 2002, 2003, I was in publishing. I worked for a large B2B publisher, and I was responsible for a division. At that time, it was the custom media division, which became ultimately content marketing. But when we went in to our budgetary meetings, we had to show two areas of growth. One was organic growth. So that would be anything internal. We're using existing staff, ideas. So that would be new magazines we wanted to launch, new websites, new podcasts, new social media, whatever the programs were at that time. We wanted to go ahead and launch something internally with our own staffing, ideas, resources. And then we were also charged with what are the acquisition opportunities out there? Because the executive team wanted to know, all right, well, yeah, you could do some internally, but of course, our growth as a company, Pent Media's growth at the time, it was a lot of that growth was acquisition. So each group had to go out and say, okay, well, what magazines, what podcasts, what websites are you going to go out and purchase with the cash on hand that we have so that we don't have to wait 2, 3, 5 years to build an audience or revenue source in that area. So let's come back to today, even on the marketing side, content marketing side, or on the content creator side. I think when you look at content marketers today and they're going and saying, we want to build an audience and we want to sell some product, services, whatever to that audience, they're almost always thinking organic only. And marketers have done this since the dawn of time. We always think that we have the best ideas, that we have to do all this work ourselves. And there's no problem with that. Absolutely, we want to feel that way. But I think we're missing out on an opportunity by not having a short list somewhere and saying, okay, if there was an opportunity, what are the YouTube channels, the newsletters, the podcasts, the webinar series, the physical events, the print magazine, whatever it is that we would love to purchase that can shorten our runway and our timeline to get us that audience so that we can drive revenue quicker, faster, more efficiently, or build audiences where we don't have audiences, but we want to launch a product in there. So that's where I think there's a huge opportunity. And we just did a big research project at the Tilt about the creator economy. And we found out that about 2 in every 10 content creators are looking to sell. So they're building this thing, they're putting all their energy in it, but they want an exit. They might want to work for another company and use that those assets and sell those assets, or they might want to get out entirely, whatever. And I think it's critical. I think the future skill for marketers that they're not looking at right now is the art of acquisition and understand what it takes and to look at a P&L and to look at what makes sense from an acquisition and what doesn't. Like you look at Red Bull Media House, we put that up on as the darling of content marketing. We don't realize that half those brands under Red Bull Media House were actually acquired outside. We look at Arrow Electronics and we say, well, how did Arrow Electronics become the electronics distribution company? How did they become the largest media company for B2B electronics engineers? Well, they purchased 52 different media brands out there. That's how they got there. So I'm just out there sort of on a campaign to let marketers know that that has to be part of our job as content marketers today, to look at those opportunities. Doesn't mean you have to pull the trigger, but you actually should. If you care about what you're doing as part of your role, part of that has to be acquisition and not all organic. So I will leave it to the floor.
I like it. I'll back that up with a quick case study. This was an article I read years ago about a super competitive category online: mattresses. Bed in a Box comes up as a technology now. Now there's a million mattress e-commerce sites, and there's a ton of. It's like Thunderdome. It is an insanely competitive category. So and it's search driven, right? Because who's got like it's word of mouth maybe, but it's a research driven thing, right? It's like you and a spouse, or you're researching at home. So what the mattress companies began to do is to buy all the blogs that were ranking for all the phrases. Some of them, I think they shut down. Some of they lightly rebranded. Some of them they kind of left as like secret, kind of stealth, pretty shady, like these kind of affiliate type. They turned it into like an affiliate site. But as an SEO strategy, brilliant. They were beginning to like own the whole first page, because their thinking was not, we are a single domain. We can rank again and again and again by owning multiple domains. I asked this question at a conference, like, will SEO ever die? No, because it's always possible to acquire a company that ranks higher than you. What is that? That's SEO. That's M&A SEO. Scary, right?
Love it.
Yeah. So you can, if the ultimate in the most competitive corners of the internet, it's not sufficient to simply rank number one. You want to push everybody else off of page one. And one way that they were doing that in the mattress category, others I'm sure too, travel, lots of them, acquire all the blogs. Wow. Now you own the page.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Great example.
Yeah. I just, in our little world, I just remember thinking, wow. Like, so I do a lot of work with SEMrush. I think, Andy, you
Sure.
do a lot of work with SEMrush too, right? They purchased Backlinko about a year ago, and to tell you the truth, Joe, that was the first time that I started, it really opened my eyes to it's a win-win, Brian wanted an exit. I didn't think he would ever want an exit, but they made it a win-win. And it does make you think of, like, in a world where you're almost, whether you're competing with AI or you're competing with one another, it's these tactics that very few companies are able to do that I'm assuming is going to speed up. Like you were saying, it takes 18 months to win, give or take, right? What if this cuts it down to 6, but you have enough money to pay it off in the 20-year roadmap? Sure. It makes a lot of sense to me.
Well, yeah, and you look at the patience of a marketer. I mean, most content marketing programs, they'll come to you, and Andy, you've gotten a lot of this as well. It's like, okay, well, what can I expect in 6 to 9 months if I do a newsletter or a podcast? Right. I always say nothing. You should expect nothing. I mean, if you get something, that's great, but you shouldn't. It takes a long, long time. So if you can shorten that runway, you should absolutely look at it. Another really good example, Chris, is HubSpot. HubSpot bought The Hustle for a reported $27 million. And some people, 1.5 million email subscribers, a bunch of great SEO,
sure.
really good branding, whatever. And you look at that, it's like, wow, $27 million. For a company like HubSpot, how much money is that? Yeah, it's 6% of their annual sales and marketing budget.
Yeah.
6%.
Bargain.
It's nothing.
Great. Yeah,
that's an afterthought. How long would it take HubSpot to do that themselves?
Yeah.
Well, may not be able to do it at all. It probably would get cut before it got anything. So it's like, boom, done, great. That's why they're doing their creator network for podcasts, because they believe that if the future for them, if they want to be the number one marketing automation company, is to be the number one media company in the marketing category. That's how they're going to get there, and that's how they're going to compete with Salesforce. So it's just interesting to see that.
Yeah.
So I pulled up some tools looking at Backlinko. Brian has moved on. We're talking about Brian Dean's sale of Backlinko to SEMrush. According to SimilarWeb, 760,000 visits a month. According to SEMrush, the search rankings, the traffic from that paid search equivalent, $500,000 a month.
Oh my gosh.
Yep.
And
yep. It's an amazing content strategy. As a business strategy with the exit, fascinating. And and Joe, you started by saying you got to invest, and Chris is your point too. you have to invest all this time. It's like an act of faith. You're going to get no results for a while. It's going to take 18 months, 24 months, 30 months. Brands don't want to wait for that. They're not going to wait for that. And if they can, it's like software, build or buy.
Yeah.
It takes a long time to build something. So it makes sense. And by the way, of course, I'm surprised more content creators aren't ready to sell. This work is exhausting.
It is. You're given your. I mean, when I started in '07, my wife and I talked about it, and we said, okay, by 2015, we thought we had a good 7-8 years that we could put our heart and souls into it and keep the family going and whatever. So we wanted to sell in 15, started that process, sold in Content Marketing Institute in 16. So, I mean, I think a lot of creators are now getting it, that they want to set and exit. They're creating content assets that are sellable and not just the name of the person, which is really, really important. So I think you're going to see more and more of that happen. It just depends on a timetable. Once that content creator gets to 3, 4, 5, 6 years, they really start thinking about exiting. And 10 years seems to be the point where they're just losing their minds. And they're looking for somebody to say, please take this. I don't want to do this every day for the rest of my life, because it's a lot. It is a lot.
Yep. I do think that as thought leaders, as you guys have written, and the mountains of content that you've written, I think that in an AI world that we are going to be able to have a different revenue channel where you're going to be able to have exclusive content, and you're going to give people access to that content through a simple login, and they're going to be able to chat GPT or essentially communicate with all of the material that you've written in the past. So we have a give to get model right now where we're just blogging for the world. But I think that if someone like Andy could literally harness everything he's ever written, and then you buy an exclusive membership to that, I don't know that you've seen the way chat PDF works or some of these other things work. It's thought leaders are going to want to have things that their competitors don't have, so they'll pay for access, and it's not going to take Andy's time. So you with the tilt, you go and you create your thought leader, whatever it is, you write all this content, and then rather than you using your time, you give people access to communicate with the AI with everything you've written. And I think that world's coming very quickly.
I think that's a I'd love to get Andy's take. I think that's a possibility. The other thing you have to remember too is everyone else has access to that content too. I've already seen it happen many, many times. I've had a number of people in other countries take my book and use it without licensing, and they're just going and they're doing whatever. So that's all available. So what we want to make sure is we have assets. So just looking at the content creator portion, we have assets that we can sell. That's why email is so critically important, because I have a direct relationship. I have that data, and somebody can actually purchase that. The website, I have all these SEO opportunities for somebody else that wants to purchase that. I have this content that's ranking. I have this traffic. These are all things that is sellable. The content is a tough one. You can monetize that multiple ways, but you have to remember, look at it like a New York Times, right? New York Times, how much content are they creating every day?
Yeah.
Do you value New York Times by the amount of content they create? No, absolutely not. You value them by the revenue and the profit. And where does most of that come from? It comes from their website and it comes from their email. So just to think about some of that, I think you're right, Chris. I think we can get creative with the types of products that we sell, but I don't know if somebody else might get creative with that too and say, well, all Joe's stuff is out there. I'm just going to take it, and I'll take Andy's stuff and Chris's stuff. I'm going to put it together, and I'm going to create my own product. And we'll see where that goes.
But I mean, I think they're going to buy a Brian Dean, and they're going to say, you're going to make this course.
Yeah.
And then you're going to log into that course, and only the people that pay for it can not only read the course, but engage with the course.
Yeah, I can picture this too. In that scenario, if it's exclusive access to content that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise, then the value proposition's obvious. If the UX is so much better than what you would have gotten if you had to somehow tell this to. Right now, it's really hard to do that. You can't really do that, right? It's like even if it did ingest everything that I've done and Joe's done and Brian's done and you've done, you can't really ask it to just give me the insights that Brian would have given me as if he's in the room. So if the UX is such that okay, this is mastermind.ai and I chose my 4 masterminds and I'm in feels like a board meeting and I'm talking to them and they're giving me advice because this knows the inside of their brain, that would be amazing UX and people might pay for that. But probably the more likely option in the near term is when you have a company that has a lot of exclusive content I'm thinking of like a McKinsey. Is everything on the outside for them? HBR. Do they have anything
No, it's
behind
a lot of it's protected.
And then those companies
Yes.
probably do have that opportunity, right?
Yeah.
It's like ask, McKinsey.ai. We're going to give you the body, the tip of the iceberg. Anybody can see, but I've got all the data in here now. And if you want, a predictive view of, mineral rights in this country and that, 3 years from now, it might give you a good answer.
Yeah. Well, the answer to that, Andy, is you're already seeing with Bloomberg.ai. Bloomberg.ai is going to literally have a right sidebar the way you have Grammarly. And it says, I see that you're talking about this particular stock. According to Bloomberg.ai, this is data that we've had. This is our projections and stuff like that. But you're paying a fee to have that right sidebar. So it's these people that have literally accumulated all this proprietary information that are going to bring more value to people that are just using ChatGPT 4. And so it's going to be this value proposition of, everything that I've ever collected, and that reservoir brings more value to the people that don't have it. But you can get it, but you're going to have to pay for it.
Here's what I want. I want when somebody wants to set a meeting with me, I want to say, okay, do you want the real Joe Pulizzi, or do you want JoePulizzi.ai, which is just all my thinking and whatever stupid stuff that's in there. It's like you could talk to that thing. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Then I can go eat my ramen and bologna.
That's right. Yeah.
And it could live on longer than us.
It could.
That's good. That's going to be super. A little side note, we're just talking about so much AI because I grew up in the funeral industry. So there's a lot of talk about somebody passes away and it's not just an urn, or it's not just a grave site and some sayings or whatever. There's actually a thing. And we were talking a lot about an NFT Web3 opportunity that would be out there that they would live on, and an AI version of them with their thinking and their thoughts and what they published and whatever would all be there, that if you ever wanted to go and have a conversation with that person, you would do that. So
Yeah.
that's coming. That's actually going to be a thing. I don't know how soon, or people are going to think it's creepy, but
Wow.
it's gonna happen.
Yeah.
Because it's
I'm
not
doing
just
it-
going to be, oh, look at their awards and here's a picture of Grandpa, whatever. It's like, oh, I'm going to go to Grandpa's site, have a conversation. I know it's crazy, but
Yeah. I have
go.
young kids. I have young kids, and my dad is getting up there in age. And one of the things that I've been putting this off, but I'm definitely committing to doing it, is I'm trying to do a thing where I might have 2 or 3 days where I interview my dad, very similar to that. There was a Michael Keaton movie where he gets cancer and he makes these videos for his son about how to shave and how to fix a car. I want to just sort of interview my dad, make it topical, and then when my dad does die, if my kids are curious, I'm like, here's a YouTube channel and this is what my dad thought about this, and do a whole bunch of stuff like that. And so that isn't wrapped up in AI yet, but it would be very interesting if somehow I knew all of my dad's core values and what he would have thought about certain things, and then all of a sudden in the funeral business, you're like, this is who he was, but this is how he lives on.
My head is doing very strange things right now.
if you have the data set, you can do it. I mean, I talked to Chris Penn about this a while because I said, Chris, okay, I did my first novel. Is it possible to feed that in and have AI come out with, okay, this would be a novel that is based on how Joe Pulizzi writes fiction, characters, whatever. He said, yeah, that's possible. We need about 10,000 of those. If you have about 10,000 of those to feed in, we can absolutely have some of this. So, I mean, let's just take it. Andy's writing. Andy, you've written so much. You're prolific with all the writing. If you fed all your writing in and you just wanted the professional business opinion or take on something from Andy Crestodina, you could probably get that. So, Chris, to answer your question, if you had enough of that at some point, it's the data. It's having enough of that to create the persona.
Andy and I have already been talking about how to do it.
So then my ancestors could go to my gravesite and ask questions about how to rank in Google in the
That's
early
right.
2000s.
What would you have thought? First of all, they're like,
Does this?
what's ranking? What's SEO?
So then, what gets ingested? Our lifetime bodies of work, separate from marketing. What did I put out there? Some selfies and a couple food pictures. My great grandchildren are going to ask questions about what my life was like, and it's
What
like,
did you
here's a
do?
picture of cheese fundito and some marketing advice. That's what's going to be left when I'm gone, right?
Grandpa loved queso.
Some food
Yeah.
pics, some selfies, and a lot of marketing articles. I'm not sure I'm leaving behind enough breadcrumbs for them to form a digital, an interesting digital version of me that anybody would care
But
about.
I thought that about the podcast because I've got 391 podcasts on Content Inc. and almost 400 on This Old Marketing, and I'm like, if my kids ever wanted to get a take for who I was, boy, you got plenty to listen to there of useless information. So,
All right,
Hey,
let
Chris,
me dive
you're up.
into
Hot seat.
yeah, let's go.
I'm up. So, all right. So my topic is called Adobe Firefly, and while I was amazed that they were going to do everything you can do in Photoshop, just literally by using natural language, the video one is the one that just blew my mind. And from the Tilt's perspective, the creator economy, it's like the power to the people has never been more powerful than what you're going to see here. And so what I'm going to do is just break down certain things of what you saw. Like the background nerd element of me is just when Star Wars movie trailers come out, I have like other friends who are nerds like, dude, at the 8-second mark, that's when Darth Vader, whatever, you know what I mean? I've done that to this video. I've literally looked at piece by piece. So like literally around the 30-second mark, you start to see, type in bright, adventurous, cheerful music. And so in theory, this video software is going to take your script and it's going to say, based upon the script of this video, this is the music that's going to come. At the 40-second mark, I'm going to change it. And at the 70, at 90 seconds, I'm also going to change it. Then what it's going to do is it's literally going to start to say, I noticed in the video script that we have an ocean, and so here's sound effects based upon the ocean, and I'm going to time it with the waves coming in. All right? So now you have a sound effect generator. You have an overlay generator that goes right on top of that, where it's reading your transcripts. It reads your transcripts. It's able to put words right on the top of the page. You saw some text effects, but the big one here is the B-roll creator. And the B-roll creator is going to essentially, you don't even need to talk. You can have an AI voice and it's going to create all of this B-roll that's going to tell your story. And then finally at the end, I don't know whether you saw how this worked, but a large portion of what we do as a company is that we help our clients make storyboards. Okay? And the storyboard essentially says, if you don't have the vision of what makes a compelling video, here's literally, this is frame by frame of what the video would look like. So I can either build it in AI, or I can take that pre-approved storyboard that the client can now approve, and I can film it with your team, your actors, and stuff like that. And I don't need to pay this director that's going to zoom in. I'm literally, from an iPhone, I'm going to be able to look at your team, and I'm going to be able to capture all of that information. And so the obvious thing is there's going to be a lot of job loss. There's going to be a lot of lower price here. There's going to be a lot of that stuff. But it's going to be as powerful as the way kids are doing with Instagram videos.
Okay, so there is the personal productivity and application angle. There's the higher ed sociological kind of like what's the future look like from the workforce perspective. There's the immediate labor market impact. There's the question about human potential and creativity. Where do you want to go next?
I have my art in
Shaking
my
his
clothes.
head.
Yeah, Joe, what do you got?
Well, it's interesting. I don't know why I thought about this, but BuzzFeed just announced that they were killing their news division and how difficult that is. And if you remember back in 13 and 14 and 15, let's say not 15, 14, Facebook's rise and Twitter's rise and BuzzFeed's rise were all together. Twitter and Facebook, I believe, needed the BuzzFeeds of the world to survive because they needed that type of content. And it is clear today that that is not a thing anymore. And that's why you're seeing all these social networks. They're getting rid of all these publisher deals because they don't need them anymore. And TikTok has shown us very, very well that regular creators who are getting really, really good at using the stuff which is amazing what Adobe is doing and bringing this power and accessibility to just regular people to create this kind of stuff is pretty. I mean, it can be first rate type work that you'd see from any content creator, professional creator out there. So I think that we're seeing that democratization. I think you're still going to see there's still the big, flashy, multi-million-dollar movies that are out there, and then you've got all this stuff in the middle that is just out there. And it's going to be interesting to see when you put this into everyone. Like we've seen it happen. Okay, you put a smartphone into everyone's hands. What happens? Everyone becomes a creator, and that's what's happened. When you take the next step and say, we're going to put these really professional tools in your hand that you can create an amazing 20-second video or a minute video without really doing much of all, without knowing what it takes to create a video.
Right.
What's going to happen? I don't know.
Yeah, it's I think the immediate the growth mindset. This is a moment when I think we have to think about growth versus fixed mindsets. And the growth mindset in this moment would say, set all threats and anxiety aside. How can this help me today? If it can help you today, do something that you were annoyed by, or didn't like to do, or you found tedious, or that was saves you time, or lets you do more of something else. It is now incumbent upon you and me and all of us to embrace these tools for that reason. The people who are the most intimidated by these things are actually the people who should be embracing them first.
Yeah.
That's a 1-to-1 correlation. If this scares you, it's for you.
Yes.
Go use it.
Point.
Wow.
So try it and begin to experiment with it, and then you'll have less anxiety about being left behind because you'll find the limitations. You'll be able to talk to your clients about it. You'll be able to contrast yourself with the even lower cost providers who are going to be coming around. But that, but in the end, yeah, I mean, this is an insane productivity tool that it's going to have massive availability. There's already 1 billion people who can use AI. Today, there are already 1 billion people who can use AI tools. Yeah, probably in the long run a deflationary force, but let's all try to enjoy the moment in our ability to kind of leverage our time and see what it can do and not try to ignore it because that's not productive.
I think your great point about sort of rethinking your value proposition as a person or a company is really important. I talked to a writer the other day, and she said, I create articles and blog posts for a living, and now somebody else can create these in 2 seconds and they don't necessarily need me. And I'm like, well, what does that tell you? It's like, maybe you should rethink the value you bring to the table. I always said, like, I came from the custom publishing industry, I said we always focus on giving away the strategy so we can get the execution. The execution is a dime a dozen in a lot of cases from today's perspective, but the strategy is critical. It's like you want to be the one not to say I can create the 10 articles for you. You should be the one that says I'm going to tell you when not to create the 10 articles. I'm going to create a better strategy, or I'm going to watch the strategy so that we know when we need to pivot, evolve, and what we need to do. So that's where I think the opportunity is to use these kind of tools as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, if you drop that on the desk of a brand, they're not going to get much value from it. I mean, let's say there's 5,000 law firms out there that should have better video. Hey, law firm, look at this tool. Watch this video. See what you can do. They don't know how to do it.
Yeah.
They don't know the plan. They don't know what a good flow would be. Yeah, they have a faster way now and a cheap or free way to like add B-roll, sound effects, transitions. But there's still, if I were buying video services, that tool really doesn't help me. I'd like to get new. I'm in the market right now, and I have a friend. I'm going to be talking about this soon. So I hope that my service providers are using tools to be efficient, but this doesn't mean I don't need a service provider. Even though I am a creative, yeah. I'm a digital strategist, but I don't think I'm going to try to. I probably could, but I still want someone to hold my hand. I like service. I value relationships. I want to talk to a strategist. Yeah, the cost for production keeps falling. It's dropping precipitously, close to zero for certain things. It's amazing. Yep. But the value this is Robert Rose again, right? Strategy and measurement. The value of those things is still high. It can help a strategist, but me personally, I still need help, and I'd like to talk to someone who can help me when I need help for things like this.
Yeah, and again, I told the writer too, I'm like, the AI is not the storyteller. You're the storyteller. And you come up with the themes and the vision and why it makes sense and the differentiation and all those things. Can AI help you get there? Yes. We talked about this in the beginning. Yes, absolutely. Use that as a tool. But it's not going to replace, it shouldn't replace what you bring to the table as a human being or a storyteller or a content creator. Hopefully. If it does, then do something else.
And I think that this sounds a little poetic, but I think it really comes down to whether you look at AI as an and or an or. And what I mean by that is that are they going to choose me or AI? But the way you should be looking at it is it's me and AI. AI is a tool, like you said, that's going to make me better. So if I'm Andy and I write really, really, really great blogs, and I know that there's a large percent of my audience that likes to read, that's amazing. But now I have a tool of people that like to listen and like to embrace content in video format, and now I can use the power of the word that I already had, and I have a video too. You know what I mean? And so I think that people are obsessed with the or, and they don't always listen to the and.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And I think, Joe, and I think in your world, I think that this would speed up that 18 months by, in theory, if you create really compelling content, and now I have an audience who likes to embrace content in a different way, it's very possible. The only question is competition.
It makes the options of which channel you focus on a little bit different, maybe a little bit more opportunity in certain video areas, whatever. But if we continue to look at the data, if you want to be successful as a content entrepreneur, you need to focus on 1 or 2 channels, not 8.
Yeah.
The diversification comes way later after you've built the audience. And one of the temptations is I can do all the things.
Right.
And if you do all the things, you will absolutely fail. So it's the same thing with a content marketer, right? It's like, okay, well, you're going to do the podcast and the event and the webinar and the social, and you're going to be on every social channel doing all the things. I'm like, great, I am leaving. I don't want to be part of this strategy at all. This is terrible.
Here comes your
I want
softball
to
question.
know you learn something and make an impact on one. Like do the Mr. Beast. He just focused on YouTube, knows YouTube inside and out. Forgot the rest of them for a long time. So use these tools. Maybe you want to go in and you could learn this Adobe tool inside and out. That might be a huge opportunity for you. Or don't. Go somewhere else.
How many things should we focus on?
One, if you can.
One
would be the best. And maybe I'll give maybe 2. Maybe a second one. But
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
One. Yeah. All right. Let's see. We were going to end with some speed round questions, but we're getting to that time. But let me see if I can maybe.
We can do it. Let's
Yeah,
go.
and I've got an extra minute. It's they'll.
Yep.
It's not. Those people can wait a minute.
All right. In the AI arms race, who do you think are going to be the winners and the losers? And I'm talking about big players, not writers and accountants and stuff like that. Give me the brands. Who's going to win? Is it Google? Is it OpenAI? Is it who?
My take is the ones that are already big are going to get even bigger. Microsoft, of course, we've talked about them. I think the second largest company in the world will continue to be huge. Amazon, of course, they're all over this. Google, they've invested. Meta, they've all invested in this for a long, long time. They will continue to integrate AI into all their tools, and they will become bigger and stronger. And OpenAI, I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, ultimately, I think they'll get purchased by one of these big companies down the road in the next year or 2. I don't think they're going to become one of those players. I think you're going to see Microsoft or Apple or somebody purchase them, and you're going to have your 5 or 6 huge players, and they'll just get bigger.
Yeah. Andy?
I think that's the top tier. You know, it's like content, very similar. You know, the rich sort of get richer on the internet. It's common. So I'm going to agree with Joe. But also, I think that you're going to see just a lot of disruption with tier 2. You can see Adobe putting out something quickly. You know, who else is in that second tier that's going to fall behind and may drop out? You know, there'll be all kinds of different marketing technology companies that invest too much or invest in the wrong thing or don't roll it out well or it's not differentiated. And so there's probably we'll all be using more tools and subscribe to more tools a year from now. But you're also probably going to cancel a few. So watch to see. You know, we can't really see the product development timelines for these products we're all using every day. I'm a little bit hesitant to sign up for something new because I know that the tools I'm using now may have things in the pipeline There's so much in development now. But 6 months from now, I'm going to say, yep, sorry, Grammarly, I'm using writer.ai, or copy. You're going to cancel something because there's a lot of overlap. So keep an eye out for that.
Nice. My quick take on that, I don't know whether I'm allowed to answer my own question speed
Please.
round.
No, I want to hear it.
Sure, you can.
I believe that aggregators, companies that focus on aggregation, are going to have a serious challenge once ChatGPT plugins happen. Because from what I'm hearing is that it doesn't take a ton of sophistication to build these plugins. And so if I'm Expedia, right, and I'm going into ChatGPT and I'm saying I want a flight with a hotel, Expedia used to have the traffic and all that stuff like that, but literally it's going to be very quickly. Well, what does American Airlines have? Okay, well, can you compare the 5 of them? The aggregator companies, I think, are going to have a serious threat here. And it is funny because those are the ones that are creating the plugins first. But that's like what I think you said before, Andy. It's like because they're under threat, they got to get there first.
Yeah.
But this plugins world is the next time we have a show, we're going to live on beyond the way plugins are going to impact society, and it's going to get weird quick. All right.
More
Sorry.
weird.
Yep, as if it couldn't. Yep. When you look at the future, are you optimistic, neutral, or pessimistic?
Well, I'll answer. As an entrepreneur, I'm more optimistic than ever. I think that we're the.
Oh, Joe, I love that you're on. Thank you.
Well, we're seeing a boom. We're seeing a gold rush in entrepreneurship right now, and the fastest growing business in the world are content entrepreneurs, content creators who want to build a full-time business. I think that COVID has put a mark on people where they want family, they want to live their life, they want to focus on what's important, they want to create things of meaning, and that all goes into that business model. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing right now, is just to help people get there and focus on that. So I'm, from that standpoint, and I'll just mention that there's other things I'm not so happy about, but from that standpoint, I'm really optimistic.
Yeah.
I'm optimistic from the productivity perspective, kind of from the UX perspective. I think that a lot of the things that we do are going to get easier as consumers. A lot of the things you search for, you're looking for an answer, you didn't really want to visit a website. It's a bit inefficient when you think about it. In hindsight, we'll say, wow, to get that, to get a guacamole recipe, you had to look at 25 options, click one, wait for a megabyte to load onto your computer, scroll through 1,000 words about somebody's grandma's hometown in Mexico and how they made guacamole. Like the way search works now, most searches don't really have visit website as their intent. So for consumers, for users, for the public, right, we're all going to be happy because we're going to get answers fast. That's great. But that also at the very same time makes me a bit pessimistic about the future of the way content works and search works and websites work, because you can see how this will lead to less traffic for lots of content programs, for better or for worse. It doesn't mean that there's not. It actually emphasizes the need to build a brand. It doesn't mean at all that we don't need to build compelling pages for the transaction, for the commercial intent visitor, who needs to visit a website to consider a solution or an option or provider. But for a lot of the information intent queries, just like the way featured snippets satisfied people's needs very quickly, AI, even better. It's going to be, it's amazing. If you haven't tried the new Bing and scrolled up and looked at the chat, it's so, I'm optimistic from all of our access to information. Tricky, mixed reviews for the owners of digital properties.
Yeah. I'm in the wait and see camp. I think in the world, and this idea of are we creating robots that could really have massive impacts on society, and do we know how to turn that button off? They call it alignment. That's the part that has me pessimistic and scared. I do believe, and this is a Ray Kurzweil thing, that every massive innovation flux has led to a much better outcome for society. And I think that the opportunities that entrepreneurs are going to have, those concepts haven't even been dreamt yet. It's almost like if you look at it like a skyscraper, the AI is going to push everybody that we were on the ground floor to level 3. But there's going to be amazing things you can do on the 3rd floor to the top. But we just haven't dreamt them yet. And I do believe that this technology is going to make us think and be able to engage in ways that we've never dreamt before. And so it's literally, it's a blue ocean on the other side, I think. But we just don't even know where to start with it. And it's exciting and scary at the same time. All right.
Stay tuned to this channel. You're
There
on
you
the
go.
right show. Yeah,
Yep.
we are looking into the future. So I love that we had you today, Joe, and that we got this forward perspective.
Oh, this has been great. Anytime you want to talk about the future and other things I don't know about, I'm happy to come on your show.
Awesome. Awesome. All right. So thank you so much to our listeners. Please like and subscribe and click on the notification bell. It's our mission to have some of the best marketing thought leaders join us as often as possible so that we can really work through some of the things that are going to help transform your business, transform how you communicate, and just literally where are we going. So thank you so much, Joe. I appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, sir.